Hello viewers all over the world. You are welcome once again to Mickey Maths Class, a channel where mathematics is demystified and made easy. Alright, quickly today we'll be looking at surds. And before we delve into surds, there are some things we need to understand. Surds are irrational numbers. And what do we understand, or what do we mean by irrational number? Irrational numbers are numbers that cannot be expressed in the form A over B. Irrational means not rational. And what is rational? That means rational comes from the word ratio. A ratio is a number that can be expressed in this form, A over B. So when you say irrational, that means it is not rational. It is not possible for me to express it in this form. Or I can say surds are the roots of rational numbers. That means numbers whose exact value cannot be determined. We can only determine their approximate value. For example, if I say take the square root of 2, we do not know the exact value of the square root of 2. It goes on and on. We can only get the approximate value. The same thing with pi. The value of pi is an example of an irrational number. So surds are irrational numbers. They are the square root of rational numbers whose value cannot be determined. Now, there are rules for solving surds. Basically, let's say rule 1. If I have a surd, I call it multiplication rule. If I have a surd root PQ, I can break or split the surds into two parts. Root P times Q, root P times root Q. I can split the surd in this form. That's rule 1. If I have P and Q multiplying together, I can split it into two separate surds. Rule 2, which is more like the division rule, if I have root P over Q, is the same thing as splitting it as root P all over root Q. Now take note, this is where a lot of students make mistake. The third rule, which is a caveat, root P plus root Q is not the same thing as root P plus root Q. These two are entirely different things. Because I can split multiplication does not mean I can split addition. Under surd rule, this is not possible. Root P plus Q is not the same thing as root P plus root Q. The same thing, root 4, the same way P minus Q is not the same thing as root P minus root Q. Take note of this. A lot of students fall into that error. When you add them separately, or you look for the square root first, then add. No, it's not the same thing. So these two or four rules will guide us in solving surds. Now let's take practical example. Now a surd must be in its basic form. Basic form of a surd. And what do we mean when a surd is said to be in its basic form? That means I cannot take a factor of that surd. Now, for example, root 3 here is in its basic form. And there is no factor of that surd that is a perfect square. That means I cannot take the square root of the factors of 3. The factors of 3 here are 1 and 3. 1 is not a perfect square, neither is 3 a perfect square. I cannot take their square root. For example, root 12 is a surd that is not in its basic form. Why? Because root 12 from here, I can split it using the first rule. I can split it to be 4 times root 4 times root 3. Root 4, square root of 4 is what? 2. I cannot determine the square root of 3, so it doesn't have an exact value, so I leave it like that. 2 root 3. Now 12, root 12, this sword here has been split into a sword in its basic form. So root 12 is not in its basic form. So this is the basic form of the sword, 2 root 3. Now let's take some examples. We can be asked to simplify some questions. Place the sword in its basic form. Well, let's take 1 or 2 examples. Example 1, simplify the following swords. That means let us place them in its basic form. Root 45 to root 50. Now root 45 and root 50. I'm asked to place them in their basic form. So the first one, root 45. For me to solve, I must think of what 2 numbers will I multiply to give me 45. But one thing I must know, if I'm picking 2 numbers, one of the numbers I must be able to take the square root. Now, for example, what do I mean? Look at 3 times 15 will give me 45. But I cannot use this. Why? Because I cannot take the square root of 3, neither can I take the square root of 15. So this one is not possible. Now let me look for another 2 numbers I can multiply. I have 5 times 9. 5 times 9 will give me 45. Why can I use this one? Why will I use this one? Because I can take the square root of 9. 9 is a perfect square. So, therefore, this becomes root 5 times root 9. Square root of 9 is what? 3. So that's 3 root 5. 3 root 5. So I've ended up simplifying this sword in its basic form. So 3 root 5 is the sword in its basic form. I've ended up. Okay, the second question says root 50. Now, root 50, the same thing. 10 times 5 will give me 50. But I cannot take the square root of 10, neither can I take the square root of 5, so I cannot use it. So the next thing that comes to my mind, I think I can use 2 times 25. 2 times 25. Why? Because 25 is a perfect square. Now, this is root 2 times root 25. Square root of 25 is 5. The square root of a number is what number would I multiply twice to get that number? It is 5. 5 times 5 will give me 25. So this is 5 root 2. Now, another kind of question you can be asked. They can ask you to express this as a single sword. Express this number as a single sword. Let's take an example. Express as a single sword. Express the following as a single sword. That means this 5 root 2, put it as a single sword. Root 50 is a single sword. Are we following? Root 50 is a single sword. So I can be asked to put it as a single sword. So let's take 1 or 2 examples. For example, I can be asked to put root 12 root 2 as a single sword. I can be asked to put also 17 root 2 as a single sword. Now, the way to solve it, you know that this number here that was gotten was as a result of the square root of a bigger number. Now here, look at this 5 here, was gotten by taking the square root. So if I want to walk back from here back to the answer I have, what do I do? Instead of taking the square root, I will square it. So the first one, 12 root 2. So I will square this number. What do I mean by square? I will multiply the number by itself and take the square root. This is root. So I will square it. That's 12 squared times 2. 12 squared is what? 144. 144 times 2. This is 8. This is 8. This is 2. That's root 288. So I've ended up expressing it as a single surd. That means like walking back from the question to the answer, or from the answer back to the question. Number 2, 17 root 2. The same thing. I square my 17. I put my big square root here. That's 17 squared times 2. 17 squared will give us 289 times 2. That means 289 times 2. That when I multiply it, I will get 578. So that's root 578. I've ended up expressing this number as a single surd. Thanks for listening. You can also practice on your own and let me know any comments, anything you don't understand in the comment section. I'll be willing to explain more. Thanks for listening. Stay blessed and watch out for the next video.